Good to have you, Patrick. So we're going to switch over to talk about gamings and the gaming world, game development world, and many other things. Because like Sune, like Cheryl, Jay's got a degree from San Francisco State University. So we have there's Sune, I'm sure you can appreciate that. So Sune, you live in Palo Alto, right?
Yes, really close, just 1 hour. Yeah.
So, and how far, Cheryl, by driving wise, does it take from where you live to? It probably would take 6 hours to get up to San Francisco area, doesn't it?
Depends on who's driving. 6 to 8 hours, it depends.
Jay is 6 and you're 8, or vice versa.
I'll never tell.
She drives faster than I do.
So, I've got a lot of things queued up here to ask you about, but you've got a minor in IST or another. It's not a master's. You minored in the field. Is that right?
Is that for me?
For you, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. At the time, it was called Education Technology,
okay.
And it was like nonlinear education with CD-ROM development, and that's really all I can remember.
So you've been in the
was a while
20
ago.
years? Is about 20 years in the field or so?
I've been in the field for almost 27 years or 25 years now.
In 5-year increments, could you give us your title from 27 years ago, 22 years ago, 17 years ago, 12 years ago, 7? I'm just curious how your title has changed over time.
You mean like my first jobs and what I was doing after I graduated, or?
Yeah.
I guess 27 years ago, I was a graduating student, getting my MA at San Francisco State. And then I worked in television for a while and worked on a TV show, cartoon TV show in the Bay Area. And then later on, I went into the Hollywood. I worked in Hollywood for a while and worked television there. And then next era, 5 years later or 3 years later, would be working in gaming. And so the bulk of my career has been working in the gaming field. I was working at Blizzard. And then that's in increments too, which is I worked in the cinematics department, which if you're familiar with the video games, the cinematic in a video game is sort of separate from game development and game making. So I was working in cinematics and doing regular, it's almost like working in Hollywood again, rendered out scenes and acting and stuff like that with characters. And then worked there for about 3 years, and then had an opportunity to go into game development, which was the other part of the building. And that is more technical. I did rigging and animation for game development. Worked on several games for Blizzard. Then I was also teaching at the same time because I like teaching, so I was teaching animation students. So after game development, yeah, I've just been doing a lot of game development for the last 20 years. So in increments of 5-year increments, it's just been games.
So I want to get to games, but early in your career, I read as an intern, you were working on Toy Story of all things.
Yeah. Well,
how did that happen, and what's it like working with Pixar and working on? Because Pixar is known for being creative. In fact, my other class, we assigned the book from the CEO of Pixar because it's set up to you can fail initially on projects and ultimately succeed. Unlike most places you work, you can't fail on the front end. But Pixar has a different ethos or atmosphere. Is that true? Is that true?
Well, okay. That was back in '93, my second year as a student at San Francisco State. And I had an opportunity to become an intern at Pixar. And basically it was, Pixar was really just getting started then. So they didn't have any animators. They had the basic directors that were there. So Andrew Stanton and Bud Lucky. And, let's see who else.
Ed Catmull, was Ed Catmull there? Did you meet
Yes.
him?
Yes, I did. I met everybody. As
Cool.
the intern there, I was free labor, and I ended up moving a lot of people's desks and building. From they were moving into different rooms. I did a lot of that. But I also did a lot of. They would do storyboards, and so I was in there with all the storyboards. And the storyboards were presented on 4x8 cork boards, and you would take the sheets of storyboards that were the actual drawings and push pins, put them up. And if they changed, a story, you would have to take them all down again and then put up the new ones. And I did that for quite a long time.
Well, in our face-to-face program masters, they have to do an internship. That's why I asked the question. It led to many. It wasn't that important while you were sitting there, but it's led to many things and many interesting projects down the road. So internships are important. And as I mentioned to the students before you got here, FISA has contacted me with many jobs they have, including wanting to have a partnership, including internships. So, you never know where they might lead.
An internship is a great way to get introduced to the industry. And one of the things I tell my students about internships is that you're not a threat. You come in and you're this sort of cute little puppy that comes in, and everybody kind of like takes you under their wing and teach you, which is not what you find sometimes when you work in the industry. So it's that's something that students should take advantage of.
So yesterday we had a guest from Norway talking about AR, and they're building an open source AR platform. And he mentioned a concern that they have is that there are only 30 institutions in the world that train people to be AR programmers and developers, and 20 of them are in the US. In my other class, this was. And, he's a person in computer science who dabbles in education. He's a bridge builder, sort of, and he goes to education conferences. It's my friend Mikkel. And you are too. You kind of cross over. You have, you've learned about instructional design. So I'm curious where you see the overlap between the field of instructional design and IST and the field of game development and being an animator and so forth. How do you see that play out? And how do people who might be majoring and getting their EDD in IST find themselves in the gaming world if they would like to enter that world?
Well, right now, the augmented reality is still in its very infancy. And so the adaptation is still very, very small.
Right.
Sort of like when mobile was first getting developed back in 2003. Phones were not ready for mobile games. But in 2008, mobile games really blew up. So I think we're almost on the precipice of AR blowing up in the next 5 years. And then that's going to usher in different ways of teaching and learning experiences, because the interactivity that you can get from augmented reality, and depending on if you're like wearing glasses, then that would be you would be in a room and be able to see what's going on. I think that experience is something that's going to really enhance learning experience for people. And yeah.
So one of my students mentioned yesterday, he's from Yemen originally, and they're using the same textbooks to teach English and other disciplines from 30 years ago when he was a student. So he did his dissertation on augmented reality for these textbooks overlays to make it more engaging for the students. And I have submitted with him, so I'm a co-author of an article that we submitted last week, and he's got a couple of them. So I'm starting to dabble myself into this field. I'm not an expert by any means, but I've become interested in it. I'm curious how game developers see augmented reality. Why are they embracing augmented reality and VR? It's just because where the technology is going, and the games will have to be augmented in some ways. I'm curious.
I think that it's about the experience that's going to be changing. Like when I was in San Francisco State, the new changing experience was nonlinear education, or nonlinear storytelling. you could sort of work your way through a story, but it would have different endings depending on how and so which ultimately developed into video games, right? That's sort of the ultimate non-linear entertainment. Video games have no quote ending. You are in control of what happens in this entertainment. I think that with education, that opens up a lot of exploratory and interesting ways for people to learn. So yeah, I'm not sure. I know that it will be a different experience, and every new genre needs the killer app to be able to have the adaptation and everybody jump onto it. So I think that soon we're going to find something for education that's really the coolest thing that everybody's going to want to experience and play with, but it's also an educational device.
So everyone's heard of World of Warcraft, and many of StarCraft and Blizzard and so forth. What was your role in that? In those, were you a manager of the production side, or were you actually in developing and animating and so forth? What were you doing?
Yeah, I was a developer doing animation. So I was one of 5 animators and animated a lot of the characters. And so I did a lot of rigging, which is you get the mesh or the model, you put the rig in, basically, a skeletal system that you put into the mesh that then it will form and move around. You get the fingers to work and the arms to work. And then once you have that, then you can go and animate the character. And then, so we would go through several animations, run animations, idles, that. So I ended up doing a lot of different characters.
Yeah. Are you in teams, and do you have competitions between other animators and so forth to see who can develop something unique and different, or are you working in silos?
I think that, well, the animators all work together, and on that project we all work together, and but we're always competing against each other, so we're always trying to come up with something cool and brings life to these characters. Always trying to find something that stands out in a character and then try to bring that to life.
Oh, there we have it. Did you have any clue that this was going to be such a big hit when you were working on it? I mean, was it a super secret project that you couldn't tell anyone because you knew it was going to be a big hit, or was it a surprise?
At the time, we were just trying to, make a game that we were hoping to have at least, maybe we'd have 500,000 people play it. And if we could hit that number, then we'd be okay. But we didn't know if it was going to be successful or not. So what happened was that once we published it, I think it blew through that in the first week. That started playing World of Warcraft. So that was a surprise, and that really opened up a lot of problems. Wow, what are we going to do with all these people playing our games? We're going to have to develop a way of taking care of them and keeping the game going. So that's these pictures that you see here in the pictures that you see there in the background are actually from StarCraft, which was another project that I worked on, which was quite different than WoW, a different style of game. But yeah, this is a sample of some of them.
So we missed the number because you faded. You're going a little bit in and out. What was the total number that are users of World of Warcraft right now?
I don't know. Everyone on the planet. It seems like at the time it was like everybody was playing it and it was all over. So that was quite amazing. But yeah, so you can see you do the Mitchells. You can see this is an augmented reality project that I worked on for this. So in this case, it's promoting this movie. And if you click on it, launch. I think you need to click it one more time. Turn the sound. Anyways, so this character we made.
Oh.
And this is the character with the bones in it. This is what I was talking about earlier, was like, this is the rigging system that makes them move. So those are the colors, boxes that you see there. And this is the bone count. So I rigged and animated this character, and then this is it in the app working. So you could see you can play a game with him where you can throw him a cupcake and it gets stuck on his head, or you can photobomb you, come from behind and do a photobomb. So Pretty Big Monsters is the company that I work with, and they do. We did a Scooby-Doo project together, and the Mitchells versus the Machines project, and then just recently they published the thinking out. What was the latest movie? One with Frankenstein. Anyways.
Hotel Transylvania.
Yeah, Hotel Transylvania. Thank you. Did a Hotel Transylvania one, which is also, you can find that on Snap. So the way that the Augmented works is that you can download it on your phone, and then play around with the characters. So it's sort of a promotional thing. But I think that for education, that there must be ways of adapting characters to be able to teach you things. And I think it would be interesting to have, what I really want to see in the future is like to have somebody on your tabletop that is teaching, like having a little person on your tabletop.
Yep.
You're just watching with your glasses, and they can instruct you. And then just having the interactivity there.
Yep. A Professor Einstein on your desk.
Yeah.
I would like that very soon. People last week and the weeks before in my other classes were talking about for our field, instructional design and systems, learning analytics is really important. And knowing something about adaptive learning is really important. Learning something about AI, those are the trends today in immersive worlds and so forth. And now you can take these massive open online classes to get some skills on learning analytics. Are there like credentials, like 4-class credentials being offered by San Francisco State or some other place where someone could learn about game development and get a micro credential or a badge in this field? Do you know of anything like that?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I do not know.
I'll assign it to Cheryl to look up for us. She'll find it. So remember, we have a Jamboard to ask questions for Jay. But I would like, while I'm asking this last question, I'd like everyone in the chat window to type a question. Don't hit enter. Just hit enter when I say all at once. We'll hit enter. We'll see all the questions that will pop up. So instead of the Jamboard, we'll do it in the chat window. But while I'm asking my last question here, Jay, what are you doing in Germany?
When I was in Germany, I worked with a game company doing mobile development, and that is actually on my reel here. You can see the work I did there. It's Heroes Quest. I think the Heroes Realm. That's it, right there. So this is some of the characters that we did for this company. Yep.
Cool.
And so I was a lead animator there and hired people from different parts of Europe and did animations for characters. So I was there for about seven months, and then I worked remotely with them for.
Is there an international game developers? I think there is. There used to be in San Francisco a game developer conference each year before COVID.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, GDC.
GDC, yeah.
So I'm actually working with a company right now. I'm working with Imanji, and we are getting ready for GDC right now. And so Imanji does Temple Run 2, which is a pretty famous mobile app. So we're working on a new one for that that's coming up. So I have to do a bunch of stuff to make it look so that we have stuff to show.
Have you made any games for the K-12 world or for higher ed world in terms of learning related games?
I am also currently working on some other educational games. Yeah, I've been working remotely for about 3 years, more than 3 years now. with various companies. And so I get projects to work on, and currently working on education for students. And I don't know if I can talk about it.
Yeah, you probably have a non-disclosure agreement.
I do have a non-disclosure. So, yeah.
Can you tell us what age level you're targeting?
The age level for this one is probably maybe first grade, second grade, third
Oh,
grade.
really? You go down to
Yeah.
that? Okay. Wow.
It's very kid oriented. Gaming.
Will they learning at home or in schools with the game, or both?
I think it'll be both.
So do you have to do your homework when you, I mean, in terms of creating a game for a different age level than what you had previously? I mean, do you go out and interview people to find out what, or do you read books on child? What do you do?
I didn't catch that last one. Books on what?
On child development or interactivity with youth and engagement with youth or anything?
I have 2 kids. So
do you try
I
things
get
out
all
of
the
your kids?
education from real life experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, as far as the development for that, when a company is developing, usually they have a concept. And so the company that would come in with the concept usually is the company that's the educational part of it and has all the credentials and all the knowledge of how to do education. And they come to us with an idea of how they want to present it, and then we can make it into a game, and then make it into a structure that would work for educational purposes. And so it's broken up into pieces. And yeah, so we're kind of
every time you talk, I have another question pops in my mind. Do you have a preferred level or type of game or age level that you would prefer to work within?
No. I love doing stuff for kids. I just love animating. I'm a guy, I love doing character animation. And I love doing stuff that makes people laugh. So, I try to keep everything as entertaining as possible. And if it's child entertain, education, quote, child education, or adult humor, then I'll do it. Fun.
Have you ever done any fun animations for Christmas of animating Cheryl as a Christmas gift? Or I'm just kidding.
No, I haven't done it.
So, is there any?
That's a great idea, though.
Are there any books or resources that would be must reads to understand the field? Kind of an overview that doesn't go into too much depth. What would you recommend?
For game, I specialize in animation, and so I really, I have to study the traditional animation, books and things, and I have my animation survival guide. I can't get it right now. It's the book, the Animation Survival Kit by I forgot which is my Bible. It goes through different animations and things like that. So the principles of animation, and so that's generally what I use. And that's what I'm going to have my students study, just the basic principles of animation. And then, when it gets to storytelling and story development, then that's also, other things you can study. So, yeah.
Cool. Well, everyone here, hit enter so we can see your questions in the chat, and I'll stop asking so many questions. And let's see if I can even get to. So hit enter so we see the chat. We just got a lot of thank you, Cheryl. We have a couple of new questions. Okay, here we go. So one question has to do with Natasha. You want to go ahead and ask that question?
Sure. I find it absolutely fascinating, the idea of the educational gaming. But your experience is so broad just with gaming. And so we were talking earlier about designing instruction, where you start out, largely identifying the learning objectives. And so I was just wondering, in terms of, when you're starting out or when you've been part of something at the starting point, designing games, but it's not learning objectives, that you are using as your starting point. What is it that gamers are using as their starting point when they are looking at how they're going to design a game?
Making a profit.
Making a profit. It's like
No,
entertainment, or
I think it's like I don't know. I don't know who the game designers is the person that comes up with how to strategize and make something a playable game. And so in that, it has to be something that it has an objective, and you get points or skills and stuff like that. And so from that point, then you develop the game, and what how it moves and what you do in this game. So if it's an endless runner game, which is what I'm working on right now, you have to run on the track, and the rules are that you can't fall into the pit. You have to avoid the pit. There's things that you need to do, and it's how far you can run without dying, basically. And so that's the game. And then from that point, it's just adding material to it to make it entertaining, and also make it a different course, and that kind of stuff. So that's what I really delved into, is once we have a backbone for a game, then it's how do we make it interesting? How do we make it really cool with cool characters, and make it really engaging?
Like this one.
This is
I was going to ask oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh yeah, this one is Warcraft 3, which is these are some of the cinematics, and this is known as a RTS, which is a real-time strategy game. And so real-time strategy games have a different type. It has a god, the camera. It's called God mode. Looking down in a 3/4 view of the character when you're playing it, and it's a strategy where you have your side of different characters, and the guy you're competing against has his side of different characters, and you compete against each other to try to take over, parts of the map and that. So this is an example of embellishing it so that it has a storyline. This would be from Diablo, which also has cinematics. It embellishes the storyline.
Well, I could have used you for my lecture last night, because I went through 12 principles of gaming, and storytelling was part of it, and role play and whatnot. Natasha had a follow-up.
I guess my follow-up was going to be, so as you're going along in things that are related to instruction, you're trying to continuously assess what a student is learning. And so in terms of the gaming, you said, you're striving to find and create something that is entertaining and engaging. And so is as you're actually involved in the design and in the animation and things, is there also a similar, like, a way of assessing how, that level of engagement, that level of interest that helps to direct you in terms of how to continuously get it more and more engaging for anybody who's using the game?
When I was in Germany, the company that I worked with used a lot of AI and gathering information on who is playing, and they would test the game. They would sort of take the information on when he quit, and the analytics basically they would go off of, figure out if it was successful or if it wasn't successful, how much retention do we have, are we getting money from these people, when do you stop playing after 10 seconds, do you play for 3 hours, and then with that information, then they would tweak the game and start tweaking it so that it would be more effective, and you would have more people, with the ultimate goal of having you part with your money. So that's what they would keep doing. So for education, what you would do is probably the same things, but you would need a lot of outcomes, and then from there you could figure out what works and what doesn't work. So you would be able to test and see if people are getting it or not with analytics.
Scott has a question for you, Scott.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I was just saying as a joke. I was just wondering if you had access to any beta keys for any of the Blizz games.
I
been
do have
playing-
beta. I have beta keys under my house,
Yeah,
packed away
it's-
somewhere, which I've never
Yeah.
used.
Yeah, I was really excited about this this session in particular because I've been playing Blizzard games since I was in high school. So I've seen all of your cinematics and all that good stuff. So it was really a lot of fun. Yeah.
Speaking of cinematics,
Thank you.
you've had your credits on display for award-winning, events in Hollywood where your name is showing up there somewhere.
Yeah.
Is it kind of freaky to see your name, scroll across the screen?
I do have my name in the credits of Toy Story as an intern there, and so that's kind of cool. I was at the time I was the very first intern that Pixar ever had, so they were just a tiny company. There was really only 20 people working at the time. But having that in there is pretty interesting. Showing it to my kids, there's my name right there. They were sort of impressed.
Yeah, it's like watching Close Encounters of the Third Kind. The guy who interacts with the alien ship was the sound guy on the set. And Steven Spielberg asked him if he could act. And he said no, so he sent him to acting school. That guy who interacted with the alien ship became like the face of open education in the military. The SCORM, it's called SCORM, the perfect SCORM. And I got to meet him. So every time I watch Close Encounters, I watch for his name coming across the screen at the end, So I met someone from Hollywood.
Nice. Yeah.
So anyways, Priska's got a question. Priska. Priska, you're muted.
I'm sorry. Is it the one on the board or the one here?
On here in the chat. Either one.
Okay. So I have fantasized about doing costume design for gaming for a long time, but I don't know, like, in terms of understanding what somebody that works in that realm and who designs the costumes, I guess, is what I really want to ask.
So the pipeline, if you want to know the pipeline of how games work and how that pipeline goes for character development, it starts with somebody that does drawings and draws out, like, this is the character. So, I'll draw, it's like, let's say it's a warrior. And then it's like, okay, so he's got to have a big sword. So you then draw out how you want the sword to look, and then the costume, and does he have furs on his neck? Does he have a tabard? And does he have big giant boots and armor and stuff like that? So you're doing the design, it's all done in drawings. And then it goes through an approval process. And then once it gets approved of, like, yeah, that's the character we want to go with, then it goes to a modeler. And the modeler would take that and start building it as a 3D object and start texturing it and making it look correct, and then make sure that it fits on the character that might already be in a game. And then once it's already textured and modeled, then it goes to rigging, which is what I do. So I would put in the rig so that then the texture, which is basically the suit on the outside of the character, will deform and work with its arms, stuff like that, and do the rigging. And then it goes to the animator. The animator takes it and then does all the animations that go into the game. And so that's the pipeline. So if you are an artist and you do design, then that you would be the first person, in that pipeline.
So the character designer.
Yeah.
All that out. Okay. Cool.
Yep.
Thank you.
So
Paper
Katie
and
has a
pencil.
question. Katie.
Yes, I was just curious how long it takes from that first person in the pipeline until the games actually make it to market. And what challenges, now that, I live in a house with a husband who's a gamer and 2 teenagers who are gamers, and the types of games they like are very different. And I'm wondering how cooperative gaming has changed kind of what you do.
I think those are 2 questions. Two totally different. How much time does it take to make the game? In some cases, it can take forever. If it's Blizzard, it'll take as long as it takes until it's good. So that could be 10 years. Or if you're on a budget and you need to be developing as quickly as possible, for a mobile, then it could be as short as a month. If you're doing a very simple game. But the minimum amount of time is that it does take probably about to make an average game about 6 months of art development, another 3 months of polish, and about a year, probably about a year, and do it nice. Your other question was, I'm sorry, what was it?
How cooperative gaming has changed game design.
I think can you give me an example of a cooperative game that you're talking about?
Well, and maybe I'm using the wrong terminology, but I know that games that my husband likes to play don't involve any other people, but my sons like to play games like Fortnite where they're interacting socially with other people who are playing the game at the same time.
Yeah, so Minecraft is a game that is more of a cooperative game where you can build things and get friends to be there and do build things together and cooperate, and it's not like an adversarial. Where Fortnite is more of a competition, and you have characters that are clashing. But I think that Minecraft has shown that with cooperation and all of the things that you can do in it and geek out on and build and do all the crazy things that they do in Minecraft, and have a community of people that are also like-minded, then it builds a community of people that also geek out with you and love to be a part of that social experience. So I think that also, if it leading into education, I think that also builds more cooperation just in learning rather than just sitting back and like, tell me what I need to know. I think that opens up a lot of cooperation where I need to teach others around me and teach the people who are with me, and really have fun with them. It's like play. Play is learn. Learning is play. I think that that's synonymous.
We have two questions in the Jamboard. I'll ask them and I'll have people raise their hand who asked the question. One is, in your opinion, so these might be the last two questions, Jay. In your opinion, how long before we have AR and VR teachers in schools? Whose question was that, by the way?
We already have
was that
Zoom.
Sumay's question, or
That was mine. That was yours. The question I was gonna ask, yeah.
The first step, I guess, right now is right. I am augmented reality right now. This is not real. I am not real. It's just here, but I'm interacting with you. So I think this is the first step. And then when we develop into the more advanced augmented reality, then the way that I present myself then would be maybe it's a hologram in 3D where I can still be me and I would still express and teach and be able to talk to you. So yeah, but this is the first step. This interactivity on Zoom is the first baby step that people are now massively and getting used to. The etiquettes of Zoom, people are learning different etiquettes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's one other that I normally ask this question. I don't know whose question this was. I would be interested to hear more about self-directed forms of learning. Have you seen anything particularly exciting using games for educational purposes?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear anything you just said.
So let me try it again. I would be interested in hearing more about the intersection between gaming and SDL, self-directed learning. Have you seen anything exciting about using games from an educational standpoint where one self-directs their learning?
No, I have not. And that's where we come back to the killer app. Like there will be one that everybody will will adapt to and want to emulate. But so far, I haven't seen something that really is the example of what the potential of learning is that people all want to do. Hasn't happened.
Cheryl's suggesting Minecraft. Is that what you put, Cheryl? Yeah. Now, whose question was that, by the way? Was that Randy's, or who asked that question?
That was mine.
Okay. You have a lot of questions tonight, Natasha.
I'm really interested in what you do, and I'm really interested, and I really appreciate the honesty of that last answer. That we're not quite there yet in terms of self-directed learning.
Minecraft is kind of the killer app. It's definitely an open sandbox, and it doesn't have any structure to it. So you have to create your own structure, and then people who hang out with you, like my son, gets a group of people together, and then they all cooperate, and they all have to do almost like being on Zoom. They have to be able to communicate and hear themselves talk and be able to describe what they want. And then it's also management. They're learning management skills. How do I keep my group together? How do I get them to do what I want? How do I do what they want? And then the outcomes, once my thing is built and we built this together, the 5 of us, are we going to go out explore and meet some new people and invite them over to go visit our house that we just built together communicatively? So I think those learning experiences are ultimately what will happen and make it more adaptable. I think the younger generation that has experienced Minecraft will be more adaptable to the future of learning and how to be more cooperative, rather than just like me when I was in school, sit back, listen to what I needed to know, write out my paper, and I was done.
So Sunmei's got an example, to do math. What is to do math, Sunmei?
So actually it's for pre-K to second grade math tutoring. So actually self-directed kind of we were collecting or run kinds of math games. So actually game-based learning app. So every character is really simple, but based on character. And then it teaches the same concept using different game. So it's kind of a scaffolding. So in the first place, actually, a lot of educator and game designer and graphic designer work together and started based on learning objective. So it's a little bit different from J. That's because J is totally commercial gaming industry. So I think that it's a little bit different, but this company is originally focused on educational mobile app. So the first place is just to set the learning goal and then design game and then make it happen. So the first time actually we focused on pre-K and then just to improve. And then finally later we added assessment, game. So using Monster or something. So actually we collected some feedback from the real, learner. So from elementary school student and teacher and then parents, and then we let them test it. And then we collected a lot of data and then we created. So actually it already 10 years, I think. Actually, it was my former company. Right now, I don't work for that, but actually I developed some games at the time. That's because I was really interested in education. And then my background was actually electronic engineering, so engineer. So I programmed some, games. And then, totally it's a mobile game for education. So, and also that one is actually focused on students with special needs. That's because the special needs always, need some help from people, right? So they don't enjoy any self-directed learning, but that is a really simple game. So just they touch, right? See, and then what's happening, and then just follow that one, and then naturally they learn by themselves. So actually owners or child is special needs, and then she came up with this idea. Actually, her former job was a game designer, actually in Korea, and she started this company. And then she came up with this idea. So actually, she really wanted to focus on special needs, but actually investors said that, oh, that's a really small,
Small market.
Yeah,
Yeah,
really
yeah.
small market. Yeah. So, and then they think that, oh, it's okay for, everyone. So just to, do that. And then just we remove that part. But the first we started to focus on specialists, and then we tested that actually in the real classroom. Actually, I did multiple times in beta test. So actually, I saw that a lot of people, actually children really like it. That's because it's a game, right? So it's a totally different game. So they were.
We lost your audio
I
and
think-
video,
Do
Sume,
that
but
work
it's,
like that?
we lost your audio and video for a second, but we got you back.
Yeah.
It's about
Oh,
empowerment
sorry.
and control. No, it's totally. So Jay was going to make a comment. So,
Yeah, I think that the concept that are opened up with like augmented reality and just learning is like math. Say it's math. If you can come up with a concept, I didn't do very good in math because I'm such a visual person, and so just seeing numbers on the board didn't make any sense. But I did see an app where they were showing visuals of what these numbers meant and what they were doing. And so if I can see like, okay, this concept visually will turn into this pyramid, then I get it, right? So you cover the different learning where it's like, I'm a visual learner, and you have kinetic learning, have audio. And so those are all engaged rather than just sitting back listening to a professor and a chalkboard. It's just audio. So I think that opens up just a new spectrum of learning. So like what you were saying, that it makes it so interactive that people just become more engaged.
So the final question here, Hong Chong has a question. She's teaches at the IU Southeast campus in New Albany. And she's a new student in our program. So an EDD student?
No,
Master certificate. Okay, so go ahead and ask the final question for Jay.
because like I'm new to the instructional designer program like that. So I just wonder what would be the role of the instructional designer in the gaming industry? Because a lot of the maybe the strategies you talk about, I think this is just so relevant to like instruction. But of course, the purpose is different because in the gaming industry, people, the company would like to make money, right? But would you people with a degree in instructional designer would the gaming industry hire them or something? No, I think that's my question.
Well, I think that with the instructional designer, that you need to probably understand like UI, which is the user interface, and UX, which is the user experience. Those are two different concepts that they use a lot in game development, and I think that would enhance the learning experience. And as a designer, if you understand those, then when you are wanting to have a certain learning outcome at the end, then you could design an experience that encompasses an objective of entertainment and engagement, and let's get some sound in there that also will appeal to people who are auditory learners. And if you use a character that like an animated character, then you can engage people that are kinetic learners that really identify with characters. And so all of that are things that I think instructional designers should know. So basically, I would say like game design. Learn how to do game design. Make it entertaining. You can make something that's entertaining. People will do it and become engaged, and they'll learn something. Slip that in, and they won't even know that it's an educational thing. It's totally fun.
I do know
I am
that
not an educational, designer or an education person. I make video games. So my wife is the one that does it.
So I do know two things. The Game Developers Conference does attract people from the field of instructional design. So if you attend that, there will be a cohort of people who are instructional designers who go to that. A couple of my former students, one of them did a dissertation on first player shooter games. The second thing I know is that some universities are teaching UI and UX as part of their educational technology programs now. My former student, Mana Ju, who's joined us last week for this class, she teaches a course in UX and UI at Wayne State within their learning design technology program. So there's overlaps, and it's not significant, but there are some overlaps, and you have to find those intersections to be, I think, to be a creative human being. You have to be at the intersections of fields. You know, to one who creates something new. You can't do it just sitting and learning what exists within a field. You have to be making new discoveries, and that, you know, that's happening at those rare moments in time where things intersect and you see some unique insights. Jay?
Yeah, and also with disruptive technology that comes out that changes things, then that opens up an entirely new field.
Yeah.
So for augmented reality, that is the disruptive technology. How do we even do stuff that's entertaining in that? How do I make a movie that's an augmented reality movie and keep people engaged so that they can follow along with the story? If you're supposed to be able to look around and do whatever you want, you're gonna, So so it's with this disruptive technology and new things that are opening up, that are also opening up sort of the rules of engagement. Those are the things that instructional designers should be open to, and then learning and thinking about, like, how can I use this new technology to have the outcome that I want? And maybe you're going to come up with a different way of doing something that's entertaining.
So yesterday's guest is already available as a YouTube video, and he showed us disruptive technologies in that open access software that they've built to do AR programming. And he demoed from Norway off his mobile phone AR for about half an hour of different things that he was doing. Half an hour he was presenting what he's done, various things for the last 17 years or 15 years in VR and AR worlds. Every year a different project. Now they're doing AR. So I will send that to you. And Jay, I will apologize a little bit for having a trick question earlier that you weren't quite able to answer adequately, at least in my perception. I asked, if you all remember, I said, what were you doing in Germany? And the right answer was, I was drinking beers in various cities and having a good time. But you gave the answer that your spouse would like to hear. I was working real hard for 7 months, and I never had a break and all that kind of stuff.
The city I was in actually did not have good beer. In Hamburg, I'm sorry, the beer there was not very good.
Really?
But I did have one experience, where I had a chance to go down to Munich, and the beer there is amazing. So, yeah, but in the north, the German beer was Astra, and it was terrible.
Did you learn more German when you were there? Did you know some German, or?
I did learn a little bit of German, but really I didn't. I know everybody speaks English there.
Yeah, they do. Yeah. Well, I really appreciate Cheryl Narahara Hathaway coming in and Jay Hathaway coming in tonight. It's been an extended event. It's been a bonus session. This wasn't even on the docket in the syllabus. So, Jay, this is probably going to be something that all the students who attended and those that watch the archive later, and what I'm going to do is divide this up into two parts. So Cheryl's part will be one part and Jay's will be another. I'll try and have my assistant split it so it's not so long. And then I'll send you all the links and the people who weren't here tonight, because it's optional to come to the synchronous sessions here. And that's why we were rated the #1 program in the country at master's level, because we allow for options. Maybe that's why, I don't know. But you've been fabulous, both of you. It's really great to see both of you, and even if it's Zoom, thanks for all your time, Cheryl, and thanks for hooking Jay in here to help us out as well. Again, 3 words for Jay in the chat window, and just type away, and then there you have a couple of words. Any last comments, or before we hit the cutoff? Anyone want to say something? Cheryl.
I just want to give a plug for doing internships. I did 2 before I left. I extended my degree program. Life is long, and the connections and the resources and the projects I did were amazing. So just a plug for internships. And it's not the usual college student internships. You can find anything anywhere. Also, I'm putting Kurt Squire's contact information in there. That's an IST graduate with me, studies gaming and instructional design at UC Irvine.
Irvine and his wife, Constance Stankler, was seconded to the Obama administration, as I mentioned yesterday, to help put games in all K-12 schools. I don't think she was successful, but she was helped provide some structure in the various educational announcements regarding games. So Constance Stankler, Kurt Squire, a former student of mine at UC Irvine, have a center on gaming. Worth checking out. Well, thank you all. I'm going to stop the recording at this point. It's been wonderful. And we are